Well, it looks like some sneaky Democrats are working behind the scenes to send Joe Biden to the retirement home of his choice. According to a new report from Axios, members of Joe's party are quietly jockeying to succeed Biden in 2024. If the big guy does, in fact, bow out. Some are beefing up their political organizations, going to early presidential primary states, and embarking on resume-building foreign trips. Probably explains why Gavin Newsom was out in China and plowing into children. This was a charge, Harold. That was definitely not a block. It was a charge, and it was embarrassing. You would think Kamala is the shoo-in to replace Biden, but check out this headline from The Messenger. Quote, Kamala Harris tries another reboot to win over a skeptical public. What is this? Like the millionth reboot for Kamala? And just like all the other attempts to remake her image, it ends once she gets in front of a microphone.
One of the greatest threats to democracy is mis and disinformation. Now, the fact of mis and disinformation is not new. But what increasingly has happened with the evolution of technology is mis and disinformation can spread quickly, and with AI in particular, can take on a form that makes it very difficult for the receiver of that information to distinguish between fact or fiction.
I don't know what we just heard. I think it was about AI. Harold, I'm going to ask you first here again. Let me just get this straight. Newsom, Ro Khanna, Cory Booker's putting to fund together reportedly for 2026. Of course, Dean Phillips, J.B. Pritzker. The list goes on and on. What are they doing here with 2024?
I don't know. I think that anyone that is seeking to undertake a quiet campaign for the nomination of his or her political party won't win. The best campaigns, which are winning campaigns, are bold, they're loud, they're engaging, they're strategic, they're substantive. These kinds of things happen on both sides. It gets a lot more attention, rightly so, of the last one or two cycles because we have third parties and you're able to raise money differently. But I don't suspect that anyone will quietly beat Joe Biden. You're going to have to loudly beat the incumbent in a primary. We've not had an incumbent president defeated in a primary. They've been challenged, and those challengers have, I think, weakened them in the general. But I think they're probably, I'm not naive about this. They're probably believing that if President Biden decides not to run for some reason, they want to be prepared, and that looks as if that's what they're doing.
Yeah, and Dana, the option is it's not simply beating him in a primary. There is the outside option as well of replacing him at the convention,
which is messy because then you have to figure out how to get them on the ballot. That's also very difficult. Dean Phillips is the Minnesota congressman challenging Biden. He had his first town hall.
He had a heck of a day yesterday.
Yeah, that did not do well. His first town hall. I encourage you to read up a little bit about that. That seemed like a real doozy. But I just would like to imagine the Democratic governor's group chat, right, on text, and hey, you go to New Hampshire. I'm going to go to South Carolina. You go to we got to figure out a way to do this. But they're also plotting against each other. So then, the subtext under the text messages would probably be like a fun thing to see. I also think that the White House uses these Kamala reboots as a distraction for conservative media, so that you don't focus on the other things, like the economy or the border or crime. Even though voters are paying attention to all those things, conservative media, you watch Kamala's speech and you're like, oh, I got to comment on that because what was she talking about in terms of AI? So I also would end on this. The Biden team says the fundamentals of the race show we are still in a strong position. In my experience, if you are saying the fundamentals of the race are strong, you are really worried about what's happening. Romney used to say that. McCain used to say that. They both lost.
That's the entirety of the issue, Greg. I mean, Joe Biden will be pressured to leave the race, whether or not it's a convention or being beaten in a primary, if it's seen that he'll lose a general election. Mm-hmm. And right now, I mean, to your point, Dana, in that language that's being used, there's certainly no strong thing he's going to win a general election.
Yeah, it feels like the plot of Succession, with all the kids jockeying because the dad has a heart problem. They're all kind of just sitting there waiting for the right time. They have to do it all at once. I think I'm going to use an analogy using air travel to describe Joe's presidency. If you're on a short puddle jumper of a flight, you never really settle in, right? You keep your jacket on, you don't grab a thick book because it's going to be over soon. So don't get too interested in the experience. That's Joe. Right? You need a young president who's going to be on that plane for a while because then he makes sure that the experience is livable. This has been my problem with Joe for the last 3 years. Your problems he doesn't see as part of your life. He sees them as part of his life, and he's nearing the end of it. He doesn't sweat the small stuff. right? I've had a good life. He takes everything in stride, whether it's the border, whether it's crime, whether it's inflation, because all of those consequences, I'm not going to be around for this. We need a president who actually is going to feel the consequences of their policies. We need somebody young in there.
You know, Kayleigh, it's not just the list of names I just read off to Harold. There's also RFK Jr. out there,
right,
and a No Labels Party potential putting a candidate forward. I mean, there's a lot of things in the way of Joe Biden winning a general election, and then, a Republican nominee.
Yeah, everyone likes to focus on Trump and the challenges in the general. But my goodness, to your point, RFK Jr., if he gets on enough ballots in the right states, that is a deal breaker, potentially. Look, 6% was the amount of voters who went third party in 2016. That was when Hillary Clinton ran. It was 2% in 2020. And 2-1, those voters broke for Joe Biden. A third party candidate could be his undoing. A lot of people argue it was Hillary Clinton's undoing. And then enthusiasm. 38% of people say we're voting on Joe Biden because we like Joe Biden. 58% say we're voting on Joe Biden because we hate Trump. And then it flips for Trump, where it's nearly 60% saying we're voting on Trump because we like Trump. He has an enthusiasm problem, potentially a third party problem. So for all the talk about Trump, look at Joe Biden. He's got a lot of troubles heading into 2024.